Hello, Stanley sir, am I audible? Hello.
Good morning. Good morning, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, am I audible, ma? I
Yes,
think you
ma'am,
can
you're
start,
audible.
ma. I think you can start because sir has joined. I think did our Venkatesan sir, Professor Venkatesan sir has joined. I think correct.
Yes, ma'am. So, time.
Yeah, so it's better to start, ma, because he's
All
joining
right.
from abroad and it's already time for him.
I'm just a minute, ma'am.
Yes, ma. Good.
Debeka, you can start, ma'am.
All right, sir. Good morning and a very happy Environment Day to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I'm elated to welcome you all on behalf of the Department of Environmental Law and Legal Order, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, to the one-day online workshop on land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience as we commemorate the 51st Environment Day and 30 years of United Nations Convention to combat desertification. Our planet is home to about 8.7 million species, and biodiversity is an invaluable asset of our environment. But ecosystems are threatened all over the world. From forests and drylands to farmlands and lakes, natural spaces on which humanity's existence depends are all reaching a tipping point. Anthropogenic activities have stripped the fertility of the soil while catalyzing desertification. We are grateful to Mother Earth for providing us with food, habitat, natural resources, and above all, the air that we breathe in without GST. It is our duty to bequeath a greener, cleaner, and healthier globe to generations to come for all kinds of organisms to endure and thrive. I now request Professor Dr. R. Harita Devi Madam, Head of the Department, Environmental Law and Legal Order, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Director of Research, Publication and Academic Affairs, our greatest source of courage and optimism, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning to one and all present in this workshop. I deem it a privilege as a head of the department to celebrate this day, World Environment Day, in this year too. I am thankful to the authorities for continuing me as head of the department, in charge of this department. That is why I am getting this privilege of conducting this day. At the outset, today's topic: land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. This is actually the theme for World Environment Day 2024 by the United Nations. In fact, United Nations Secretary General's message for World Environment Day 2024, I hope some of you at least might have read that. In a nutshell, he is actually of the view humanity depends on land. Yet, all over the world, a toxic cocktail of pollution, climate chaos, and biodiversity decimation are turning healthy lands into deserts and thriving ecosystems into dead zones. So, in short, I'm just giving only one line of his message. So, we all know that today we are in a situation, or we are the generation who are living in a time where there is a doubt as to whether our future generation will be able to breathe fresh air. That's the first point. Second thing, whether the next generation will have clean drinking water. That's another very important. So the very basic needs of humanity itself is now in a question mark. We, this generation, are very fortunate to have had this earth in a condition where we were able to live and we are able to breathe properly. But the future generation probably would have to carry oxygen cylinders with them. That is the pathetic condition. So in this scenario, every year, June 5th, 2024 is being celebrated as World Environment Day. as this day, when it comes to academic activities, the Department of Environmental Law conducts workshops, seminars, or something like that, and many others are conducting seminars, conferences, many activities regarding or celebrating this day. But we all at a moment should think that it is not only meant for any particular department, because environment is common to all and it is the need of the hour. Younger generation, the students of this group who have joined here, I appreciate for all of you for joining here, but you have to carry the message forward to have, I would say, you are the generation to carry the message forward, that it will reach many. So this day should be a thought-provoking process for all of us, that are we doing it right? Individually, are we doing it right? Are we handling things relating to environment in the right way? Are we using it in the right way? Are we disposing it in the right way? Everything. So I think the whole environment protection in a line starts with individuals. So with that background, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor and Registrar. They may join, but for all their support which they have given for all the academic activities that is happening in our university. More than that, it is I would like to welcome our speakers of the day today, Professor Dr. R. Venkatesan, former scientist, NIOT. Sir, I would like to also extend my thanks in this juncture, because at present sir is in abroad, where the time is midnight 12:30, I suppose, but still the interest which he shows in academic activities as well as towards the environment surprises me, and I think I am admiring his efforts that he is taking to keep up all the activities relating to environment and encouraging the students as well as the department. Welcome you, sir, on behalf of the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University and all those who are present here. Dr. FAWZIA Tarannum, Water and Sustainability Consultant. I welcome you, ma'am, for joining us with us today. Once again, I would like to extend the thanks on behalf of all present here, because it is the time taken by each speaker to join us today and enlighten us with their experiences and the work which they are doing and how it can be taken forward, etc. On behalf of the university authorities, as well as all the students, and on behalf of the whole department, I would like to welcome you, ma'am, for this workshop. I would also like to welcome Mr. Prasanth, Indian Forest Service, who has also joined us in spite of all the busy schedule to speak on governance in India to protect Indian biodiversity. I welcome you, sir, for accepting our invitation and be present here for sharing us the knowledge which you are experiencing as well as your work that has been done. I welcome our Dean, Professor Balaji, sir. I also welcome all the students who are present here. And above all, I would like to welcome and also with a thanks to my faculty coordinators, Mr. S. Naveen, Mr. A. Assis Stanley, and Mr. S. Kadiravan, who is the pillars of this environmental law department, I would say. They have done all the efforts to make this workshop a very successful one. Welcome all of you. And I also would like to welcome the student coordinators, Ms. Rebecca, Teresa, Magirvalavan, and the PG students, and all of you who are present here, because without the student community, there cannot be any activity that will go on. And especially with respect to environment, I would urge all the student community to think it over, how we are responding to the environmental crisis and how we can take it forward, what more can be done, and how things can be moved on so that our next generation gets the earth in a better way, or at least the same way that we got from our ancestors. I welcome all of you, and I also welcome the technical assistants who are here given by the university, and I welcome all the teachers, head of the departments, directors who are joining here for this program. I also welcome students from other universities and departments, specifically Anna University and others. all the authorities who are joining here for this program. Welcome you all. Hope we will have a good discussion. I sincerely ask all the students to make use of this wonderful opportunity. We are having good speakers, and their experiences we can learn a lot from them. I hope it will be a very, very fruitful session. Welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for your warm words. I now request Mr. A. Aziz Stanley, sir, Assistant Professor, Department of Environmental Law and Legal Order, Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, to convey the essence and objectives of this workshop.
A happy morning to everyone. I think it is my duty and privilege to be a part of this event and to deliver a theme of this event. And to be precisely talking about the significance of the event, every conference or a workshop or whatever it is, it works on four notions. First is to raise awareness, and looking at the participants itself, you would be surprised and also admitting the fact we are not into the part of creating awareness fully. Yet a lot of milestone has to be walked and has to be achieved. And second, every workshop or a conference, it aims at promoting an action which is through a discussion on a focused theme, and altogether it tries to unite the organizations, the institutions, or the stakeholders who are working for it. And in this regard, that this year and World Environmental Day is themed on land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. And if you see broadly, humanity depends on land, yet all over the world, a toxic cocktail of pollution, climate chaos, and biodiversity destruction are turning healthy lands into deserts. And the most vulnerable and the saddest part of this discussion is it is almost the healthy lands which is converted or getting converted into deserts, and the ecosystems into a dead zones. And these are devastating the forest and grasslands, and also it is reducing the strength of land to support ecosystem, agriculture, and communities. And in a wider sense, it means that crops are failing, water sources are vanishing, economies are getting weakened, and communities are getting endangered. And it also means the poorest getting hit the hardest. And a sustainable development is at stake, and it is suffering. And we are trapped in a deadly cycle. Well, and it becomes a problem for a normal man and as well as a microorganism. And if you take the themes diversion of the cause of the pollution, land use is responsible for almost 11% of the carbon dioxide emissions hitting our planet. And it's a time to break free. And if you take examples of regions like Asia and the Pacific, these regions are exceptionally rich in biodiversity. Land use changes and land degradation caused by factors such as extensive agriculture, deforestation, and unmanaged urbanization and sprawls are reducing the biodiversity of many land ecosystems. Healthy soils store massive amounts of carbon, which, if released, would cause a huge spike in planetary warming. And changes in water courses, pollution, and unsustainable consumption of water resources are causing water related stress and reduced aquatic biodiversity. And globally, the equivalent of one football pitch of soil is eroded every 5 seconds. And yet, it takes 1,000 years to generate 3 centimeters of topsoil. And if I would start giving an example, the examples would just pile up, and pile up for the day. And yet, we are not in the path of addressing or finding a solution for it. So the objective or the main theme of the discussion would be pulling out ideas and discussions, including facts and figures by the speakers, so that it creates an awareness and empowerment among the participants. Also, it creates a proactiveness in your thinking towards environmental sustainability, and also it encourages the Department of Environmental to conduct such more activities in the forthcoming year and sessions. And I'm looking for a very healthy and happy session to be held. I hope you will have a great time in listening to our speakers, and I welcome all of you for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's our greatest privilege to have with us Dr. R. Venkatesan, sir, an epitome of diligence and dedication, a veteran of the National Institute of Ocean Technology with over 4 decades of expertise, adjunct professor, University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, USA, professor of practice, Anna University, Chennai, former consultant, UNESCO IOC Paris, and chair of capacity development, WMO Switzerland, former consultant, National Center for Coastal Research, Chennai, former senior scientist and group head, National Institute of Ocean Technology, Chennai. Sir was a Fulbright scholar. He earned his PhD degree from the Indian Institute of Science and has also completed PG Diploma in Marine Environmental Pollution and Management, PG Diploma in Maritime Law from our own university with rank 1. He has established Mood Met Ocean and Tsunami Buoy Network and owns 3 patents. He has also published over 135 papers. Sir is a recipient of numerous awards, including the prestigious Outstanding Service Certificate by UNESCO IOC Paris and WMO Geneva, MTS Lockheed Martin Award issued by MTS USA. Sir's accomplishments, if read, runs for pages, and his contributions to the betterment of our environment are unfathomable. I humbly request you, sir, to inculcate in us the importance of climate change mitigation.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I will try to share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I start now? Is it visible and audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible and visible.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. At the outset, I'm very thankful to all of you first to present here. And I convey my sincere thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu, Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Registrar, and Head of the Department Environment Law and Legal Order for their efforts in organizing this workshop and inviting me to join. I am sorry to say that as it was mentioned by the head of the department, I'm here in Atlanta. It's early morning, 12:30, and I'll try my level best to share whatever information I know and I have experienced. I've gone through that, the betterment of all of you, mainly for the students. And I also teach ocean law, and I was teaching in IIT Madras. Currently, I'm interacting with some of the international organizations. And to start with, since you're all students, you know very well what is climate change. It's basically long shifts in temperature and weather. And basically, this could be natural. Here we are talking about human. We are responsible for this global warming, and we are experiencing it in day to day in our activities. And the countries have come together. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, we call it. And we have about 198 countries. They all come together in conference of parties every year. They just try to see what happens and what is happening over there. There are 3 key instruments. As a law student, you'll be knowing about that: UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement. This is simple, the Keeler curve we call it, where the temperature and carbon dioxide is plotted in a simple way. We know very well that the carbon dioxide level is increasing. Currently, it has crossed 417, and this is a bit alarming, and it's being captured in Hawaii, close to where I am here. And you will be wondering that how it is possible having captured their collected data. Yes, carbon dioxide is one of I didn't want to talk more about science. You should know that if it is measured in atmosphere on one location, it is same almost everywhere. That's the main property which has been established. And if you superimpose the temperature, which is rising, really both of them are giving a strong evidence that something is happening alarming. And the industrial revolution and the human activity, anthropogenic activity we call it, that is really disturbing us. We need to look at it in a more serious manner. Now, to make it very simple, this is well understood science, go back about 1800 years, and it's very serious. Yes, its impacts are already being felt and will only accelerate if it continues. And is it solvable? The question comes to your mind. Yes, is possible. We have what we need to make these changes. To make it why it is simple, because we are burning fossil fuels. The population has grown. We have crossed 8 billion, much more than what was expected. And our requirements and energy requirements are going up. Then it leads to more amount of carbon dioxide being liberated over there. And naturally, the temperature rises. So to make it very simple, you may not appreciate being a law student, but preferably you should know the simple science behind that. Earth having an atmosphere, it's composed mostly of nitrogen, oxygen, and we do have greenhouse gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, and methane. Now, when the sunlight reaches on the Earth, simply we call it the heat budget. Sunlight comes from the Earth, and this is a major energy requirement for all of us, and it gets refracted and reflected back. And some energy is reflected back into the space, some are absorbed by the land or the ice or whatever it may be over there. Some is re-radiated back as a heat. This is what is a problem what we are talking today. These greenhouse gases, they radiate back, and thereby whatever you are talking about, warming of the earth is happening. This is in a simpler scale. If you want to read more about it, please read. But I'm trying to see that I also teach this subject in Anna University. I'll be starting in that way next month. But to make it simplified way, I thought this picture will make you to understand what we are talking. Why is it normal or it is abnormal? Yes, it's abnormal. This particular picture talks about how the temperature is varying. This video is not running. This video will clearly talks about from 1880 to till now how the temperature is rising. Is it serious? Yes, it is serious, mainly because of what is happening now. Like the sea level rise is happening, and there is a wild weather we are facing it now. These things are prominently seen. That is making it, yes, it is serious. Now this is another picture. Why this is change? The average, what we call, is getting shifted. The change in small average of this heat definitely affects us. That's what we are talking about, major change all over the world. The place where I am here, there is more warmer, even including in US, and the temperature above Switzerland, where I was there, it was 1,000 meters where you are getting about 0 degree. It has gone up to 5 kilometers. This is what is changes which is being measured and monitored in the recent days. Now, we know very well recent days we are experiencing a very high temperature. This is very recent data published by WMO. Clearly talks about 50 degrees centigrade is being seen in Middle East. And this was also reported in Delhi. Later on, it was confirmed that it is not 50, it is 49 by the Indian Meteorology Department. This bit alarming as this temperature rise is noticed all over the world. Now, what is happening to us? There are various the calamities we are facing, like cyclone. We know very well cyclone is very common in Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. Bay of Bengal faces 4 times more cyclone than the Arabian Sea. But intermittence of cyclone prior to monsoon, like we saw it just now in May, is becoming every year now. And there are cases happening one back to back between Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. So this is really affecting us, the country where we are living, arid and semi-arid structure, and the economy depends on the monsoon. This pattern is really affecting us. Added to that, floods has become very common. Of course, yes, we are also responsible for unavoided growth or what is happening in the structures. In addition to that, ice melt is happening in Arctic. I have visited Arctic and we have installed our observatory in Arctic. Same thing, Antarctic ice is being melt. Forest fires, many more things are happening, which is very alarming. You would have read about that. When you talk about forests, that is a theme here today we are talking about it, that can absorb and store massive amount of carbon dioxide. We have seen earlier the importance of what is happening because of the increase in the carbon dioxide. Having more forest and trees, it can have it. Simple language, in one tree can talk about 22 kg of carbon dioxide it can store in a year. Just imagine, by cutting a tree, you just say that I'm only cutting one tree, but that effect is really alarming all over the world. And forests are the home for more than about 80% of the biodiversity on the land. Again, if you remove the forest, the biodiversity gets disturbed. The trees can reduce pollution, air pollution. The pollution is increasing day by day, and it can absorb pollutant gases and retain the particulates. Yet, each minute we lose about a forest area about the size of 40 football grounds. In addition to that, we need to take efforts to keep these forests. About 2 billion hectares of land is getting this. All these findings are making us to have this theme today, where we talk about the particular activity on the World Environment Day. When you talk about biodiversity, because the biodiversity, we are now talking about ecosystem services. It is not only whatever we have seen, there are many more essential services it is providing. When you talk about sustainable development goals, biodiversity is foundational to SDG, and its loss jeopardizes their achievement. And biodiversity ecosystem services are declining, and the human well-being is getting affected. This is a particular picture which is a bit alarming to see about that, how the species are declining day by day, and also the temperature rise is affecting us. The coral reefs very close to us, we have a coral reef ecosystem in Gulf of Mannar and Andamans and Lakshadweep. The coral reefs are very sensitive ecosystem. It houses more than 3,000 species. The coral reefs can get affected if the temperature gets increases in the ocean. Now, we are doing business as usual. We are not bothered about that. And what is happening to them? There's a major loss in the ecosystem, depletion of the fish stocks. Climate change more than 2-degree increase can lead to risk of invasive alien species. Invasive species means species which are not present in a particular location. From other area, it can come over there. That can even eradicate the native species. And input of plastic waste is a major alarming thing. Majority of the plastic what we use, even in the hinterland, through river and many other sources, it reaches the ocean. The ocean has got about, it's often said that 60, 70 years down the line, the plastic particles will replace the fishes. And even the deepest part of the ocean, in Mariana Trench, we have this plastic. And the plastic is such thing is that it is a covalent bond, maybe in school you would have studied. It will remain forever, even though we may not see it. That is what is a plastic footprint we are leaving to this planet Earth, just because the previous generation and this generation is responsible for that. Is there any replacement? Is there any way the industry is looking into that? That's the biggest challenge we are facing in combating this plastic pollution. Now, worsening thing is happening on the health aspect. It is also, the climate change is also affecting the health. There are also allergy, there are also about microorganisms, and there is increase in the risk of insect and foodborne diseases. This is being alarming, which is being noticed quite often over there. You would think that what happened, I'm just leaving and going back, a small degree change in temperature of 1.5 degree or 2 degree, what is going to happen? You can see a small 0.5 degree temperature, how much it makes a difference here. The sea level rise of about 1.5 degree rise can lead into about 8.5 to 30 inches. Just another 0.5 degree additional can increase much more alarming. Loss of coral reef, 70 to 90%, whereas if it is 2 degree, it is more than 99%. And about 350 million people will be affected if it is 1.5 degree. If it is 2 degree, it's about 410 million people will be affected. So, and about ice core, ice about, once in 100 years, whereas once in 10 years it can get affected. Having seen all, we have ocean, about 70% what we are living over there. How does it play a major role? If the ocean did not exist, the temperature what you have got is not conducive enough for us to live over here. So the rainforest, what we have it, are vital habitats for many wildlife species they provide. So 28% of the Earth's oxygen come from that, 70% is coming from the ocean. So again, it's very important for us, the land and the ocean need to be protected. It has got kelp, phytoplankton, and algal plankton, small tiny planktonic species that is producing the oxygen what is required for us. Now, ocean is heating, yes. This we call it as a marine heat wave. It's also warming up, as we have seen in the previous picture. About 93% of the extra heat is going onto the ocean. That ocean heat, if you look at the quantum of the amount of seawater over there on the Earth, it's so alarming that is affecting us on our day-to-day weather conditions what we are facing. Not only us, and many other species which are living into the ocean. I don't want to say much about the effect like ocean acidification, where the acidification of the ocean can lead to affecting the marine organisms. Sea level rise, when you talk about land restoration, the sea level along the coast is being risen, and we have in our own Indian coast, many of the coastal region getting affected now. The IPCC report, which was released about 3 years ago, clearly talks about 10 cities along the coast of India is going to be affected by 2100. There are also questions about this report because the data related to the bathymetries need to be seen again, but still it is to be noticed that it's alarming. Sea level rise is going to affect us when you talk about land restoration, land loss going to happen in future. Now question comes to our mind, having seen that alarmity, is it solvable? Yes, it's solvable. What we need to look at it, this is what globally being talked about, that the carbon dioxide emission need to be controlled. We are continuously emitting it. Last year, the UN Secretary General had visited Delhi. He clearly said that many of the countries are not fulfilling the target what is being specified over there. We are nowhere near to that. So emission cuts need to be done. We are aiming to have it 1.5 degree difference from the industrial era, but it's not happening over there. So what are the effects? Like the remedies what have been thought: reduced consumption, sustainable production, climate change action, conservation and restoration. That's what we are talking here, and reducing the other drivers. So with all these things, knowledge what we have gained, in spite of that, the policymakers and every individual, it is not the government alone, every individuals need to work hard so that the conservation and the restoration aspect is happening. So there has to be a path to the recovery, and that requires, even if we talk net zero, if it happens today, it will take some time, because the amount of damage what has happened, recouping it takes time. So this is what is the current scenario. The recent COP28 in Dubai, that has agreed to one more thing on establish loss and damage fund for the vulnerable countries. This is one thing. Somebody else is disturbing it. Some other countries like small island developing states, island nations, or least developed country, they are getting the feel of it, they are getting affected. So this damage fund is one idea which has been accepted. Now, what are the limits of the natural system? We cannot negotiate with the nature, but we need to know the limits to find a sustainable path for the human race. How can we reduce the human vulnerability to global change? How can we move forward towards sustainable development? These are all the questions which can come to your mind when you talk about that. For all these things, science is the one thing which has got an important role to play. It can go to question and to support the society. Society is depending on the science, so that some solutions and the technology can be evolved on the basis of the good science and which is happening over there. I just want to brief you about what the government of Tamil Nadu has done. You can read more about these reports. Council of Energy and Environment and Water, they have got a very good report that talks about how the Tamil Nadu has got 10% of the India's overall GDP, and we have about 23.64 lakh crore of GSDP, and leading industrial state, having a target of having 1 trillion economy. With all these things, and we have a stabilizing population, energy needs are increasing. This is what, when you talk about the energy need, automatically the challenges what we face will come to their mind. Then how do you look at it? Then greenhouse gas emission is gone. The data clearly shown that it has gone up by 84% from 2005 to 2019. There is to be a definite measure to control. And the long-term net zero emissions and transition plan has been evolved. There is a scientific and rigorous energy system modeling exercise has been done. There is a state's vision, and the sectoral path for net zero emissions have been evolved. So the Green Tamil Nadu mission has a potential even sequestration of carbon dioxide emissions. So this is very good that already they have thought over it, they have brought a complete plan, and they are implementing it with a proper mission over there. When you talk about restoration, I also would like to say that how the technology helped. You would have seen recent days there is a beach which has come to Puducherry. That's mainly because of some few of the technologies engineers working in National Center for Coastal Research. They have brought a technology by which the nourishment of the beaches happen over there, and the restoration is happening. So this is one important thing I thought you should notice, that how the technology is helping. So the beach is not yours to destroy, and you have to preserve and protect it and pass it on to the next generation. Same thing when you litter and you have a plastic along the beach, that is really affecting all of us and the future generation. Slightly I move on to what is the role of United Nations, and I've been part of few of the United Nations committees. I just briefly touch upon my experience over there. One of the things is that we spoke about the alarming nature of the early what is happening. The early warning system has to be evolved. So UNDP has got a signature program for strengthening the climate information in the early warning system for climate resilient development and adaptation to climate change. There are also diversified groups in the UN working towards that. to collect data and sharing data to forewarn the people on many of the changes. Like we have a weather forecast similar to the climate forecast on all the hazardous climate related events. WMO is a World Meteorology Organization located in Geneva, where I was a vice chair of a SGO's one study group, and I'm also working on some other few committees over there. The World Meteorology Organization thought that it is also working closely with UNFCCC on Earth system approach. It's no more weather alone. It is to talk about how Earth, ocean, hydrology, cryo, and also space all can come together, and we can start looking into that. There are countries who are deprived of that. There is a definite funding mechanism they have evolved, and 40 countries have been identified to work towards that. We also discuss about advancing computing facility, how the current computing facility is sufficient or what more is required. When you talk about ocean, there is an UNESCO Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission that is an authority having this to collect data, to understand about the sustained ocean data collection. And what is important here is we cannot manage or understand, we cannot develop a policy unless we do measurement what is important over there. I had an opportunity to serve in various committees. I was also chair of the regional, about 13 regions are there. I was heading all the regions. We were working together, evolving programs to develop that. Recently, when I was the consultant, I was interacting with 150 countries, and I could bring about 75 countries together. We conducted a meeting, how best we can work together on including climate change aspect, including weather forecast, how do you help people. So this is one small contribution I had in interacting with various countries, and I would like to say that India, we are much better off having the science and technology and other activities much more advanced when you compare to these countries over there. This is a small team. Globally, we are distributed and we are working together regularly in the meeting. Now, when you talk about recent development, as a law student, you should be aware that you all must be knowing about UNCLOS, and you would have studied about UNCLOS, and you know that the exclusive economic zone, and about high seas, about 84% of the ocean, 64% of the ocean, and 91% of the habitats are over there. How do you protect that? Who is responsible for that? And therein, the countries have come together after a long time, and they have brought intergovernmental conference on marine biodiversity of area beyond national jurisdictions. So this is one recent development, successful development. It has been adopted and it is ready for signatories, and many countries have come together. Herein, the legal angle has been discussed. I was also talking to some more legal experts related to that. And there are many more things being worked into that. I am sure that students will be interested to know about BBNJ. Please read for your own understanding and learning. And adaptation methodology, in particular for the coastal protection, has been evolved at the national level. And these guidelines have been brought in, and the vulnerable areas have been identified, in particular storms and storm surge, how that need to be protected. Both scientific community and the policymakers, they are involved in that. Finally, I thought I'll touch upon the role of lawyers. The climate change litigation is spreading all over the world, and it has doubled, and there is a key tool in delivering the climate justice. This is one important development which has happened more than 40 years ago. The first ever legislation in United States that became a law, wherein the Clean Air Act in 1967 was evolved. Now, the law and the legal institutions are the heart of the global community's response to climate change. That's the only way where the national and the international law, they can play a major role in the climate crisis and bring justice. That is what is important. Particularly, disproportionately harmed, particularly people and the society and the countries, they need to be supported. Herein, there is a new generation of lawyers are required, who have got a role to play in social, economical, and political and ecological dynamics of the large-scale changes what is happening over there. There is the role of law in adapting the climate change. This is another important role at the national level and the regional level and the global level is happening. Law can facilitate adaptation, but using the regulation, one can reduce exposure on the climate hazards and ensure accountability. This is what is not happening. Accountability on adaptation and decision-making process, addressing the social justice dimension of adaptation. Normally, adaptation talks about science and implementation, but the social justice dimension has been brought in when you have a legal expression to that. There are various characters of climate change and associated impacts, but lawmaking for that is a bit challenging, because when you talk about lawmaking, the climate change, some activity has taken place. It has got a slow progress. When you want to find the effect of it, it takes time. Whether the legal angle will wait for that, that is what is being discussed in the global level. There is another broader challenge the lawmakers are finding it to make a legal process and instruments to be more adaptive and responsive to the changes what is happening itself. And another report by UNEP, that report clearly talks about climate litigation. They are divided into 6 categories. The first category talks about human rights angle, which is enshrined into the international national constitutions. Then challenges in the domestic non-enforcement of climate-related laws, and also they keep fossil fuels in the ground. Advocates for the greener climate disclosure, an end to greenwashing, and addressing the corporate liability part of it on climate harms. Finally, addressing the failures in adapting that. So they become a watchdog. They just start looking into that in a broader perspective. This is what a very important development which is happening by the legal angle. There is also another report I've come across wherein globally available the parliamentary acts, and they have been studied. And the Paris Agreement, we know very well that limiting the global warming to 2 degrees, 1.5 degree, 190 countries have come together. And there are about national climate laws. In this particular work, you can also see the database. This particular work they have studied, and they have also brought in a statistical modeling to link between the climate laws and the greenhouse gas emissions. The study clearly tells that when you have a new law, there is a carbon dioxide emission itself is reduced by 0.8%, and the countries with the strong ability to implement these laws have a bigger fall in the emission. So there's a positive effect. When you have this legal regulation, definitely there is a change which is happening. In particular, if this Parliament Act, they are more powerful than the executive orders. Now, I thought I will share with you some other things. What are the key the legal litigations cases which has been there? Like in Australia, one particular case, the government violation of human rights obligation, one of the Torres Strait community has been brought in. Brazil, the Paris Agreement, human rights angle, and supernatural status they have agreed. The Dutch court, but for the first time, an oil and gas company, Shell company, has been asked to work on the carbon dioxide emission. In Germany, they talked about Federal Climate Protection Act and incompatible to rights of life and health. In France, a court in Paris made the climate inaction and failure to meet the carbon budget goals have caused climate-related ecological damage. The United Kingdom, a court finding that government has failed to comply with the legal duties under the Climate Change Act 2008. Another important, like SIDS, small L developing state, they have come together. They have brought an advisory opinion on climate change, and they are working together. In Indian government, India also have found that Supreme Court has clearly said that mere enactment of law protecting the environment would suffice. Then India would perhaps at least less polluted country in the world. Unfortunately, this is not so. So this is what is an observation. Another important advisory from the ITLO's International Tribunal of the first time we given an advisory opinion, wherein they have given to the several questions related to anthropogenic GNC emissions, obligation to prevent and reduce control pollution marine environment, and obligation to protect and preserve marine environment. So the first time they have brought in advisory opinion. And there is also a COSIS, they call it, as a link between climate change and the law of the Commission of Small Island Developing States, in particular from Antigua, Barbuda, and Tuvalu. They are all from the West Indies countries. Their mandate is to include promoting the implementation and progressing the development of law in international level. And the key question they try to bring it, best available science they want it, because science only can provide them the enactment for executing it. The court required the scientific solutions to that. I thought I'll share with you my own small interaction with the small L and developing states. There are about more than 30 plus countries. They are deprived. These countries start with Kiribati having 1 lakh people, and that's the first ever country the sea level rise increase is going to be affected. There are many more countries. They are not like us having all the resources available and they have to be protected. And I had organized 2 sessions in the American Geophysical Union, AGU, in US 2 times in 2022 and 24. We have brought in experts to work together on the issues related to that, how that can be forewarned. This one particular tsunami which has happened in Tonga Island that got affected. So they are looking for cost-effective sensor and how work together. I thought I'll conclude my speech or small lecture here. Yeah, talk about climate change, international legal regime. There are courses available. If you are interested, these courses have got a certification part also. Please visit these sites. One is a World Bank self-paced e-learning course. Another one, UNITAR. United Nations have brought a climate change courses. These courses will give a broader perspective on COP and the legal regime, UNFCCC, what is happening. As a student, you will be able to learn more about that. And these are all some interaction where I participated in UNESCO IOC UNDLAS, that is United Nations Law of Sea in New York, and where I had interacted with them and WM Geneva. This is a small picture to motivate you as an individual what you can do. After the Gaja cyclone, few of us, we joined together. In 4 months, we worked together. We mobilized about 20 lakh rupees as an individual, not part of NGO. In 3 districts, we could plant about 20,000 tree sampling. Every year we take and the trees are growing very well and the locals are protecting it. The small contribution we have done it by having this coconut trees plantation over there. So this is a small way we all can contribute to work together to save this planet Earth where we are living. This is just to show you where the diversified nature of biodiversity or various species living over there on the earth. And we as a human, we are having our own for our greed, like Mahatma Gandhi said, we have everything for our need, for our greed we don't have. So these animals, these marine organisms on the land and the ocean may get affected. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, sir, for your knowledgeable session. I'm sure our attendees would know how anthropogenic activities have a huge impact on climate change and the role of law and UN in tackling and mitigating the same. Thank you once again, sir. For the next speaker, we have with us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
For the next.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with a comprehensive presentation on the climate change mitigation and for suggesting remedies to overcome the same. Facts such as 1 tree could hold up to 22 kgs of carbon left us awestruck. And we are really grateful to you, sir, for your invaluable time and for giving us a list of international organizations to hone our skills. We assure you to promote sustainable use, to recover our Mother Earth, and not to be human-centric, but eco-centric. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
For the next session, we have here with us is Dr. FAWZIA, TARANNUM, who is a freelance water and sustainability consultant with his career spanning 2.5 decades. Having held diverse roles, including assistant professor at Terry School of Advanced Studies and general manager, sales at Clentech Infra Private Limited, Dr. FAWZIA's experience extends across academia and industry. Her commitment to academic excellence is further evident through her receipt of the University of Nairobi IDRC doctoral research grant. In 2022, FAWZIA's dedication to sustainable development garnered her recognition as one of the 17 SDGs Women Change Makers by Safety and Twitter India. An ardent advocate for climate action, Dr. FAWZIA completed the Climate Reality Leadership Corps training under the guidance of former Vice President A.L. Gore. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Teresa, for that very, very, detailed introduction. It's indeed very humbling to know that. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Crystal clear.
Yeah, thank you very much for confirming. Indeed, very honored to be part of this conversation on World Environment Day. I would like to first of all thank Dr. Venkatesan for recommending my name for this. Thank you very much, sir. Your session has been, not very easy to speak after you. So I can only say that. but you have really laid down the context very well. But I would also like to thank Dr. Ambedkar Law University for inviting me for this session. And I think Dr. Venkatesan has very beautifully laid down the context. There is absolutely no brainer at this point that climate change is real and it's happening. Let me share my screen and take it forward a bit. WebEx is always a new place for me. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you so much for confirmation. And it is on slideshow now, so I think that part is also taken care of. Yeah, so once again, I would like to thank all of you, and especially the management, the Vice Chancellor, the Registrar of Dr. Ambedkar Law University, and Professor Stanley for inviting me to this talk. I'll be speaking a little on land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience, which is the theme of the World Environment Day. And I'll move on to water management strategies. As I mentioned that Professor Venkatesan has already sort of laid the context of, the climate change, how it is manifesting, the temperature extremes that are happening, the extreme weather events, the ocean getting heated up, the sea level rise that is there. I think plastic pollution, health, marine ecosystem getting impacted. I think he's been pretty comprehensive and detailed in his presentation, where the entire, climate change and its manifestation has been very explicitly laid down. So I'll just quickly move to, I'll just give you a quick idea because of the theme, the world map of drought risk. So obviously, when climate change is happening, when there is extreme heat, we experienced more than 50 degrees Celsius just a few days ago in North India, and because this whole heat, which is actually bringing in, evaporating a lot of water and bringing in a lot of rain and cyclones, as mentioned by, so that's also sort of sucking the heat out from the ground, and it is leading to decrease in soil moisture, resulting in drought. And if I look at India in this map, which is there, India perhaps is in the medium to high risk when it comes to drought. And obviously, if I try to superimpose this with the water scarcity issue, I see that again India is in highest water stress level. Even today, when we look at the average water availability or per capita water availability, that has fallen much below 1,500 cubic meter per capita per year. We are already water stressed. Anything less than 1,700 per capita per year, cubic meter per capita per year is water stress. So we are already experiencing water stress, and anything below 1,000 is like is being water scarce. And there are many regions in India where people do not have even 1,000 cubic meter water per capita. So obviously the problem is already there. It's just going to become more severe under this climate change scenario. Yeah. And if I look at the frequency of severe and exceptional droughts in India between 1901 and 2021, you can see that between this about 120 years, you can see that there have been a lot of events, lot of states which have been experiencing drought, up to, if you see here, up to 12 states. But if you look at the maps, I think almost all parts of India has been experiencing some kind of the drought at some time of this period or the other. And since 2000, there has been a 29% increase in frequency and duration of droughts in the world. And of course, even in India, we have seen regions that has experienced mild to severe drought condition. And droughts can reduce up to 2 to 5% of the GDP. It has already reduced in 20 years of time. So there was a report by UNCCD, and they have clearly established that India's gross domestic product GDP has reduced by 2 to 5% in between the period 1998 and 2017. And there's another study by them which says that almost about 854.4 million people of the country are exposed to drought between 2015 and 18, but I'm sure they still continue to be exposed to drought condition. Similarly, when we look at land degradation, and this is the data from 2015, and while we see other countries also in the impact of land degradation, which could be natural or human induced, but this particular map shows human induced land degradation. And if we look at India, especially the northern part of India, this is another region where, you know, even the GRACE satellite showed us that we are under extreme water stress, especially the northwest part of India, which is also the breadbasket of India. So here we see that there is strong human-induced land degradation that is there. But even in the south and southwest, also we see that there is light human-induced land degradation. So primarily, a lot of the land degradation that we are seeing in India is human-induced, and while there is some bit of it because of sea level rise and extreme weather events, but that also has been triggered by some anthropogenic reason or the other. So if I really look at it again, you know, the UNCCD report that I was talking about, the area that is actually under land degradation, 30.51 million hectares of India's total reported land was degraded it's just between this period that it was degraded. So overall, of course, it is almost about 96.4 million hectares. That is 29.32% of the total area that is degraded. But this is equivalent to 43 million football pitches that is actually has been degraded just in a short span of 2015 to 2019. So that shows how fast we are encroaching upon our green areas. We are moving towards, you know, demolishing our mountains, hills, and taking up those land. How fast we are actually, the pace at which we are using chemicals and chemical fertilizers and pesticides on our agricultural land, which is rendering them, like degrading them and rendering them non-culturable. And because of this, you know, there are almost about 18.39% of the Indian population is now exposed to land degradation. This is a little landscape of Chennai, you know, because you are based out of Tamil Nadu, I thought I should show this, that how the whole equation you see has changed between water body and built up area, how it was in 1980 in Chennai and how it was in 2010. And if it was literally like 80-20 and 20-80, that's how the whole equation has changed over time. So obviously these also contribute a lot to land degradation. The major causes of land degradation, desertification, is water erosion and wind erosion. So a lot of it is actually, I can say more than 10% of it is because of water erosion, and about 5% of it is because of wind erosion. So when you have extreme rainfall events which are there, and already when we have our mountains which are compromised and our slopes which are compromised, when there is water that comes with extreme flow, you see that it carries away a lot of silt with it. So it erodes the entire region. This is something that we have witnessed in Uttarakhand extensively. This is something that we are witnessing in Aravallis extensively. In fact, just yesterday I was at Damdama Lake, and I saw that, you know, it is hardly left. Barely there is, what can I say? It's not even like 500 liters of water in Damdama left, which is almost about 80 acres of lake. And today the situation is such that we have degraded the whole Aravallis to an extent that and of course taken out the groundwater, that the lake no longer has water, and hence the economy that was dependent on that lake, the people's dependence on the lake, has come down drastically. Of course, Green Revolution, while it brought in a lot of prosperity to a lot of farmers, Green Revolution also sort of left our lands degraded, because we multiplied, one is we moved into monocropping, but besides moving into monocropping also, we used extensively, we used chemical fertilizers and we used water for irrigation. Our crop, I would say, per unit area almost quadrupled, but overall today most of the land is degraded beyond recovery. Even a lot of land area we see where we have salinity which is there, and hence because of soil salinity. Yeah, may I request to please keep your mics on mute? Yeah, so Green Revolution is definitely, that's one reason why we are facing that unsustainable land use practices, where we are logging, we are destroying our forests, we are converting our forests into agriculture land, and then from there on we are moving, and very urbanization is happening. So land use pattern over a period of time has been changing. A lot of natural vegetation is being removed. A loss of soil moisture, of course, when we talk of drought, and when we try to deplete our groundwater also, but we also have extreme events which are there, and we don't have, we have sort of made most of our layers pervious, then there is very little moisture that gets absorbed in the ground, and overall the impact that we are experiencing is that there is a loss of soil moisture. Very recently I was in Lakhimpur in Uttar Pradesh. I'm doing a work with a sugar mill on sugarcane cultivation, and while they have immense amount of water because it's in Sharda and Ghagra basin, but farmers actually irrigate their field using diesel pump, and they didn't have enough money to really irrigate it more number of times. And I could actually physically witness this loss of soil moisture, and the sugarcane crop getting affected because of that. Mining again is one of the reasons which is leading to desertification and land degradation, overgrazing that is there. Then pollution, of course, because of which there is all kinds of waste end up in our landfills, and from there it leaches into our groundwater, and it pollutes our groundwater. There are also emissions from there, and then it pollutes the atmosphere also. So a few of these factors, I would say, and I think most of it which I have right now spoken about are anthropogenic and not really natural. As I said, most of the natural factors we are now speaking about are manifestation of the anthropogenic activities that we are doing. India is committed to achieve land degradation neutrality by 2030, and we have, our target is 26 million hectares, at least in 2019 we said that we will try to restore at least 26 million hectares. So as we discussed, we have 96.4 million hectares that is degraded, but out of which we are at least committing that by 2030 we would be looking at 26 million hectares. Now there's one project, since I'm joining you from Delhi. Yeah, may I please request you to keep your mics on mute? Yeah. So this.
See, who is KN Priyadarshini? KN Priyadarshini.
Hello.
So it's okay. I think you can mute her mic too if she's not muting it herself. Maybe your IT person can do that. But thank you very much. intervening there. So Aravali Green Hole project is the recent project that has been launched by the government of India. You are aware that Delhi experiences a lot of dust storms, and a majority of them can be attributed to destruction of the Aravali mountains, and hence it has made both Delhi, Rajasthan, Gujarat quite vulnerable to desertification. And there is in this restoration of 26 million hectare which we are talking about, Aravali Aravali is identified as one of the key zones for greening, and as you can see that the purpose of that is combating desertification, but green areas are also water repositories. So if we are able to restore Aravalis, then we will be able to recharge our groundwater. And our lakes, you know, especially I was talking to you about Damdama Lake, which falls in the foothills of the Aravali mountains. They can actually, through base flow, you know, their water can be maintained even during the off monsoon seasons or during the dry season. But right now, at this point in time, what we are experiencing is more of reverse flow rather than a base flow happening. But there are other things also that we can, ecological balance and other things also that we can achieve out of that. FAO had come out with a very beautiful, you know, illustration where they talked about how arid lands, you know, water harvesting study and what are the different interventions that can be there. So if you can see, if you see this little illustration, you can see a lot of log dams and check dams and one rock dam and leaky weirs and gabions and earthen berms. A lot of it you can see in one picture itself, but here, you know, I've tried to show it a little bit more, you know, the illustration I've elaborated it here as well to just give you an idea that how little small interventions, you don't have to go for large interventions. If you're seeing a water flowing very fast from a slope, you can just make a little small gabion, or you can just put a few construction and demolition debris there to slow down the flow of water and allow it to recharge and percolate, and that itself will be of great help when it comes to restoration processes. So they call this natural infrastructure in dryland streams, and you can read more about it on the FAO website, but it's also by, if you go to Hardwood Visuals, you can see that. I just wanted to highlight a little research also that we had done in Gurgaon some time ago on blue-green interventions for addressing flooding along the Golf Course Road. While I'm not covering the entire thing, I just wanted to show you one of the creeks which is there. So this is a creek where you can see a whole lot of construction and demolition debris that has been dumped. So there are 4 such creeks which are there on Golf Course Road, and all these creeks, when we saw, they were fully filled up with the construction and demolition debris. So as part of our study, amongst many other interventions that we recommended, so I just coming to recommendations where we talked about rain garden and recharge wells and green corridor and catchment basins and all that. We did talk about also cleaning of these drains, which are these creeks which are there. While this study was carried out in 2020, but this year in 2024, the work has already started on the creek. So we are hoping that this monsoon we will experience less flooding in the area, but also at the same time we would have better groundwater recharge during the monsoon season. A few other measures, strategies which are there. One is integrated water resources management. I think a lot of strategies that I would be telling about is already in practice in India, just that we have not been able to scale up. One such strategy on integrated water resources management, which was done in the 90s, is the Hivre Bazaar in Ahmednagar in Maharashtra. And this particular strategy, you know, when this place was completely drought struck in 1970s and people started leaving, even people started, you know, resorting to alcohol and crime and other things. This particular gentleman, Popat Rao, actually came back after his master's to his village in 1990 and took this up as a challenge, where he went on to do multiple level intervention. So he went on to do a water budgeting. He looked at the slope and how they can water harvesting structures on the slope, how water conservation can be carried out, how crop choices can be, you know, made so that, when they don't have enough water. Anyway, the region gets between only around 200 millimeters to 400 millimeters rainfall. So when there is less rainfall, what's the kind of crop they would grow? How would they prioritize the water use? So it's a brilliant case study. And I think in case it has not been really done, it would be worthwhile looking at this case and taking it up in your course as well. The very common thing that we are talking about is rainwater harvesting. And rainwater harvesting is something that perhaps Chennai was, Tamil Nadu, I would say, during Jayalalitha's time was one of the first ones. I would say they had that first mover advantage when early 2000 they actually had this rainwater policy, went on to implement it, and there was a significant rise in the groundwater level that was observed. But somewhere that complacency in the people, where they just make it but not really maintain it and render it non-functional over a period of time, led to the crisis that we saw. Also encroachments, of course, we have seen a lot of encroachments in Chennai as well. Most of the cities, I would say, that are, we have really reversed the equation of the gray and the green and the blue. So hence the whole issue is there. Rain gardens are another way of really harvesting rain. Then bioswales is another example where you can actually have on the roadside, you can have it along the drains, and that sort of holds on to a lot of water. Farm ponds, again, as part of Jal Shakti Abhiyan, if you would be familiar with 2019, 2020, and 2021, extensively people went on to revive their old ponds, whereas built these farm ponds so that they can be used for holding water. But also something like cascaded pond system. I think this is very, very typical of South India, where we had the cascaded systems. But these are the kind of systems which we call chauka, and has been implemented in Rajasthan extensively by Laporias. And this is able to hold a lot of water. These are shallow depressions which are there, but they are dug around the slope, and the water comes into it and it's held there for some time, and it gradually percolates and recharges the groundwater. Significant impact of this has been seen in terms of greening of the area in Rajasthan, where this has been implemented. The next thing that I would say, agriculture, as I said, is responsible, so efficient agriculture practices. So we need to shift towards pressurized irrigation system, wherein we need to look more at sprinklers, we need to look more at drip irrigation systems. Difficult, sometimes, there are subsidies from the government. I would say on drip irrigation, even up to 90% subsidy is there from the government. But at the farm level, at the field level, there are a lot of challenges that farmers have. I was mentioning to you about Lakhimpur, like the fields do not have electricity connection. They're dependent on diesel. So either they go for a solar drip irrigation combination, or they wait for the electric supply to come. So there are different limitations, and most of our farmers being smallholder, they are not able to take the advantage of many of the government schemes which perhaps can help us in combating desertification, degradation. Because here, if you're using drip irrigation, you can actually apply targeted fertilizer also through the drip irrigation process also. Then also moving in terms of choice of crop, what you're growing, how crop rotation is another very important thing. Here I had put conservation agriculture. Again, conservation agriculture is also something that is becoming quite prominent, where we're talking about zero tillage, and we are saying minimum tillage that should happen. We're talking about cover crops, so that we can retain the soil moisture. So there are many things that is being about, and on experimental basis it's being carried out also in many places. But scaling up still remains the challenge, and scaling up is the challenge because at the grassroots level we need to go and study our farmers also, and what are their needs before we come up with certain recommendations. Smart application of tools now, like very remote, through remote sensing, it's become pretty easy to actually measure the soil moisture and real-time monitoring of the crop, and only irrigating the field when there is need to irrigate the field, and not unnecessarily flooding the field. And I would say farmer applications, plenty of farmer applications are there which are being used, and farmers are becoming in India also quite informed about using information communication technology to monitor their crops and save on water use. Then also with respect to drought and flood resilient seeds, so that we are able to help them in terms of productivity and reduce crop failures. The traditional water bodies, revival of traditional water bodies, whole lot of them are there. A few of them I have put here. I really don't need to elaborate this. This is something that we have been talking for years together now, that all our cities have had some or the other kind of traditional water bodies which were meant for rainwater harvesting. But since we have blocked the natural hydrological channels, water is not able to come to this place. So how can we really revive these traditional water systems to hold more water is again one such, I would say, strategy that is there. Then the other strategy that perhaps can be done with respect to erosion control and soil moisture conservation. For erosion control, your jute mats are there. We also see these days geotextile, which is being placed on the slopes to prevent erosion. With respect to soil moisture, mulching is a very common thing where the crop after harvesting, it's mulched there, and hence it prevents water evaporation or slows down that whole process and holds the soil moisture there. But also in terms of how we can really do an integrated crop and forestry to prevent soil erosion. So that's another way where we can actually do an erosion control and prevent soil moisture. Afforestation and eco-restoration, again, as I said, that I'm here in Delhi, and extensively I work in Gurgaon with different organizations. So GURUJAL being one of them, of course, and we are currently looking at some bit of eco-restoration project in Damdama. But there are multiple examples in Delhi, RAMESH Biodiversity Park being one of them, which was it was actually a degraded mine which was there. It was totally a barren land, which in a period of 10 years, it was taken up and converted into lush green forest. And also there are various other places which are there, many bunds. You have the Chakarpur Wazirabad bund, you have the Jharsa bund. There are many such bunds also which have been created, which can actually hold soil moisture and prevent soil erosion. So this is something I see a lot happening in Gurgaon, not as much as I see it happening in Delhi. Agroforestry, again, is another way where we look at trees and shrubs, and we look at crops integrated into one. And there are different ways, there are different configurations which are there, where you can actually have trees and shrubs with forage and livestock. You can also think of widely spaced woody vegetation intercropped with annual and perennial crops. Then you can have forest farming, where forested area for harvesting crops for medical, ornamental, culinary uses, and then home gardens also, where you can have sections of trees, shrubs, and vegetables. So basically, it's more an integrated approach, where they have a symbiotic relationship, but at the same time, they also help in increasing the soil moisture or holding the soil moisture and preventing soil erosion. Last slide that I wanted to speak on, and this is something very recently I've come across, and I've been also contemplating that whether I can do this in some parts of Gurugram, is creating these little water bunds. If you can see this side, because of paucity of time, I didn't really bring the videos in here, but these are semicircular bunds, which in Africa, this organization Just Dig It is doing extensively for the last few years. And they have actually dug millions of bunds like this, and they have been able to really restore almost 430,000 hectares of land, 18.7 million trees recovered. So you visit their website and you will get these information out there. And last but not the least, I would say that water is something that cuts across all these other 16 SDGs, and if we are not able to really address the issue of water, that perhaps we will fail in our targets to address the other SDG goals. Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Drought, it reduced the GDP of India in the past 2 decades, and how human-induced land degradation has caused a serious issue among us. and how you dealt with the major causes of land degradation and the importance of rainwater harvesting has provided us with these valuable information, ma'am. Thank you once again. The next speaker session we have here with us is Thiru E. District Forest Officer and Wildlife Warden, Chennai, formerly Wildlife Warden. Thiru E. Prashant, who graduated in Civil Engineering from Guindy Engineering College, cleared UPSC IFS with All India rank of 16 in 2018 batch, with a Tamil Nadu state level rank of 2nd. He served as a graduate trainee at Highway Research Station, Government of Tamil Nadu in 2013. From 2020 to 2022, he served as an assistant conservator of forest. He is a wildlife warden now with 6 years of experience. We are delighted to have you here with us, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, hi. So very good morning. I hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah.
Yes,
good
sir.
morning. Good morning. Very good morning. So happy to meet you all on this good, pleasant day, the World Environment Day. The topic which I think will maybe deal for next half an hour to 30 to 40 minutes is environmental governance in India. So I remember last time I came to your campus, we had a discussion on the similar lines. But now, since the session is on kind of technical, so I'll not go very deep into technical, but I'll give a slight overview of how the environmental governance have evolved over time. So basically, since you're all law students, you are quite aware that during independence or in the constitution, there is as such, there is no focus on environment as an enforcement, say until 1970s. If you see the state list, concurrent list or the union list, it talks about forest, it talks about health, it talks about sanitation, it talks about say every other thing as an independent things. So, but something happened in 1970s across the world. Maybe if I could share the screen. Yeah, I think so something happened in 1970s. So one thing which happened in India in 1970s is this Bhopal gas tragedy. So you should be, most of us are aware that it is one of the largest tragedies in independent India of environmental nature. So until then, we had other tragedies which were basically industrial disasters, which were related to safety and other things. So the first time the word environment or the need for environmental law emerged aftermath of this tragedy. Around the same time in 1972, there is some conference called UNC, the United Nations Conference on Human Environment. Something happened in Stockholm. So that was in world scenario, and this Bhopal gas tragedy happened in India. So combined impact. So until 1972, the world was convinced that humans are on top of the food chain. We are top of everything. In the evolution, we are at the peak. We are at the helm. So every other world, there is this problem, right? The entire creation was, the understanding of the human society was that the entire creation of the world was for humans. But in 1972, a lot of new issues were cropping up which were beyond our control. So one such thing was global warming and ozone hole depletion started in 1970s. So as individual humans were unable to control these things. So then humans, we all, the head of the states, all sat together and came to a conclusion or a situation that in world there are things which are beyond human control, and human is not at the maybe a human is not at the apex, he is not an apex person, he is not at the center of universe, but he is among the food chain. So he is part of the web, he is part of the food chain, he is part of this ecosystem. So when this awareness came to a lot of countries sat together and started coming together on various issues which are cross-border. So unlike all issues, say terrorism or so any issue which are supposed to be worldwide or supposed to be within a country, but this environment damages to environment was the universal issue, and the biggest thing is you cannot put barricades. There are no barricades to environment. So some issue happening in say India, Pakistan, if something happens in Pakistan, India cannot say it doesn't bother India because the air is same, the water is same, although water there is little separation, but air in most of the aspects, the environment, the world as an environment is same. So even in history, we have seen few volcanic eruptions have changed world over. One volcanic eruption in the Atlantic Ocean has brought world over drought for 2 years because that volcano has covered the sunlight and reduced the evaporation, and which in turn reduced the rainfall. So humans started understanding that world is not a separate thing. So world and humans are part and parcel, and humans can survive only if the world is there, or world can survive only if humans are there. So this kind of interdependence started arising in 1972. So at the same time, the damages due to mismanagement of environment has also started coming up. So in 1970s, India has brought an act called. Can someone tell which act is that? So okay, I think we have very silent audiences, but so it is the Environmental Protection Act, EPA, the Environmental Protection Act. Since we're all law students, there are very few acts which have so much power. Very few acts in India has so much power. One such act is the Environmental Protection Act. So Environmental Protection Act is so powerful that if it is implemented in the right spirit, it is a single common umbrella act which can be used to regulate anything. So whatever you see today, whatever rules you see today are all emanating from the Environmental Protection Act. Very few acts allow the executive to form sub-legislation. I think you are aware what sub-legislation means. So usually a law is passed in assembly or legislature or the parliament, then it is approved by the president, then it becomes an act. So after the act is there, to have the procedural part, the rules comes in. But a very unique thing about the Environmental Protection Act is the rules are so open-ended. The act is very open-ended in few aspects. So it allows governments or the executive to create new rules as and when required. So, for example, Environmental Protection is one act. So any rule which you see, for example, disposal of medical waste rules, disposal of plastic waste, extended producer responsibility. These days, any plastic wrapper or sheet you buy, you will just turn, there will be a small writing on the letter stating the company is ready to buy back this plastic cover at a rate of say 5 rupees per kg. And companies are forced to reduce plastic in packaging, forced to standardize things. All those things are emanating from the rules. The rules are from the Act, the Environmental Protection Act. So in India, so the umbrella legislation is the Environmental Protection Act. So although we have two other acts, the Air Act and Water Act. So, but now Air Act and Water Act are part of this umbrella environmental legislation. So basically, all our pollution control board, central pollution control board, state pollution control board, everything are under this Environmental Protection Act or the Air or Water Act. So this is the background of environmental legislation in India. But one, since I told you this is one of the most powerful acts. So what is your, I want few responses now. So what is your opinion on the enforcement of these acts? Have you seen it, and you're all law students, I hope so. In that sense, how do you feel the current enforcement of environmental protection is there? So can I have some responses? If someone can respond. People are so quiet. Any responses? Can someone comment on the current environmental legislation, or how do you feel as a common citizen? I don't want you to answer as a law student or something. I just want your view on how it is on the ground. Okay, fine, no worries. See, currently the environmental legislation in India is the rules regime is very strict, very highly efficient. Efficient is not a right word, but highly standardized environmental legislation is available. But the biggest challenge is environmental legislation is its implementation. Unlike other acts, the implementation of environmental acts requires lot of coordination between lot many people. So unlike other environmental legislation where there are single agency to implement it, single agency to foresee it, single agency to check its implementation, the environmental legislations are kind of decentralized in the sense that it requires a seamless working of almost all the departments to make sure the environmental legislation functions properly. See, for example, take I think the campus is from Chennai. So most of you have gone to Chennai. So most of you could have seen how the rivers are polluted in the city. So, but we all have the sense who pollutes it, why is the river polluted? Is there a way to restore it? So, are we following any punishment principle for the people who pollute it? So, the complexity starts here. Say, for example, a system like river. A river is not owned by any forest department or someone. Most of the time, the rivers are public properties owned by either revenue department or some corporation or something. In those areas, there is a new set of governance coming, say the local body. And these local bodies, although they are mandated with the responsibility of civic cleanliness, say collection and disposal of garbage, either there is a big lack of manpower, or there is a big lack of financial power, or there is a big lack of technical power. So they don't have expertise in managing the waste. So most of these waste end up polluting our ecosystems. So in this case, even if we have an enforcing department, unless the departments which are supposed to do the job are ill-equipped, or not fully capable of doing the role, then the issue of non-compliance start arising. So putting the non-compliance in a very larger aspect, we see what is we see currently now. So the biggest challenge in environmental regulation is the only field where there are a lot of people, lot of stakeholders involved in doing something is environment. So whenever we say there is an organization which is responsible for something, but it is very difficult to pinpoint an organization who are responsible for environment. So environment is something where almost everyone is made responsible, but the maxim goes when everyone is responsible, no one is responsible. So that issue crops in. And one more biggest trouble in the environmental legislation is, as I told, environment is a cross-border, or it is not a point source where we go to a point and solve the issue. The most of the environmental issues are multidimensional. Say, for example, take simple things such as electricity generation. So, take a simple thing, electricity generation. It's a day-to-day need for any country to grow. So, for the day-to-day country to grow, electricity generation, there are thermal power plants. We all know thermal power plants are polluting, big polluting industry. So, when thermal power plants are polluting, there is a big question whether should we go for the development or not. So whenever a question of strict enforcement of environmental legislation comes in, there is always this question of environment versus development. So today is June 5 and we are so happy talking about environment. So suddenly, I think Chennai, the weather is very hot also. So you will all be required to have air conditioners. You will all be required to have, say, some high electricity consuming gadgets or anything to run our day-to-day life smooth. So at that point, will the debate of environment or development, if the debate happens, the poor environment will always fail because it is the comfort and convenience of humans which comes first. So that is why it is very difficult always to balance between environment and development. So most of the environmental legislations today, we are all regulatory in nature. So what do we call regulatory? Regulatory things are not prohibitive, so they don't tell do not use, do not do. There are all those regulatory items are not prohibitive. So basically, all those regulations do not prohibit anything. So they tell to regulate. For example, take the case of thermal power plant. So thermal power plants, it is the regulation comes in forms of like how much, what should be the efficiency of thermal power plant, what should be the efficiency, say, of the transmission grids. So all these kind of minor things will improve efficiency. So in long term, when we talk about environmental conservation, it is, so we have always heard that plant trees to save the world. So it doesn't, the world is not so simple just by just planting tree to save the world. So it is very complicated. So one part affects the other part, which affects the other part. So it is a feedback system or a continuous chain reaction system. Say a simple example of electricity impacts pollution. So very few of us are aware that everyday items which we use around us, everyday items, the light. So the one we could see in the screen. So the lights, the backboards, the printers, all those things have something called their life cycle. So they have to be disposed properly. But the biggest question is who will dispose it? Who is responsible for disposing it? So this is also another problem in environmental governance. So you create something, you have a lot of existing things, and how do you make a system to properly disposing things? So environmental governance is both about creating responsibility on one side and creating capacity. Now we are all as a simple classroom or simple education to public will tell that yes, thermal power plant is polluting, but what is the solution? So then comes a lot of challenges. So the biggest challenge, so the way we started. So for example, the Bhopal gas tragedy. So the Bhopal gas tragedy, whether should we have a question whether should we have industries at all? So that is not possible. The country has to develop. People should have decent jobs. People should get minimum standard of living. But for every minimum standard of living, you need to consume energy. So there is this saying that pollution, development is pollution. So the very word development is actually pollution. Say for example, a farmer living in a village who doesn't have an air conditioned house, who has a just mud house, living in a farm, he consumes what he grows in his own field. So the amount of pollution made by that farmer is almost nil. So the farmer is not going to pollute anything. He is not going to pollute any river or something. But the moment the farmer wants higher yield, so he will start applying fertilizers. He will start applying pesticides. So when the rain comes, these fertilizer and pesticides make a runoff. So they remove the topsoil also. They end up into rivers and water bodies. So eutrophication happens. So the pollution starts from there. But as a country develops, there is something called per capita energy consumption. See, India, compare the countries like India and United States. The per capita energy consumption of average citizen in United States is multiple times, not multiple percentage, it is multiple times higher than what a individual consumes in a country like India. So there is something called energy intensity. So in terms of okay. So in terms of energy efficiency or something, the topic is little bit very complicated. So that is why a proper understanding of things needs to happen in environmental governance. So just like that, say Bhopal gas tragedy, if someone feels that yes, the company has polluted, let us stop all the companies. So where will people get jobs? Where will people get some decent standard of life? So that is where environmental governance comes in. So that is where all those regulatory frameworks come in. One another biggest challenge in environment is there is a cost involved. There is a cost involved in having environmental protection. See, for example, unlike criminal justice system where we are all very much aware of IPC, CRPC or civil procedures, there is a crime and there is a punishment. And there are no costs involved in enforcing it, except for the courts or something. But the problem with environmental governance is there is a cost involved at every point. So every point in environmental governance is costly. Say, for example, most of you should be owning bikes, or some people will be owning cars in their houses, in your houses. So you will see something called BS4, BS6, BS6 stage to Bharat standard. So what is this BS? It is a kind of environmental regulation which says the vehicles should have this much of emission standards. So this much capacity vehicle should not emit this kind of pollutants from its fuel. So the engine should be very efficient. It should be able to collect the pollution at the point where it is going out and try to reduce the pollution which is coming out. But how do we do that? A simple example of a two-wheeler. We all know the fuel for two-wheeler is either, most of the times it's petrol, maybe car, if you go, it's either petrol or the diesel. In that case, is there a way to reduce pollution? There is no way, because whatever technology comes for internal combustion engines, it is just the petrol or diesel which is going to be fuel. But how are these standards improving? So there is no way you could stop a pollution from a car. Car will always emit something because it has to burn a fuel. It has to burn a fuel to give your car movement. But since we are all today environment day, so should we stop using cars? No, the world cannot work that way. So that is the environmental regulations coming. So a lot of regulations coming. Say, for example, this pollutant, say sulfur, should not be greater than this percentage. Carbon monoxide should not be greater than this percentage. So that is why these regulations come in. But will just regulations work? So we all, I think many of you will be aware, when the country moved from Bharat stage 4 to stage 5 in the vehicles, a lot of advertisements from car companies or say two-wheeler companies were coming like within March 31, the BS4 vehicles will be stopped. So we will give you most of the vehicles at discount. And BS6 vehicles, the current generation vehicles, are little costlier. So why is it costlier? Because for every reduction in pollution, there is a cost involved in terms of research, in terms of say R&D, so in terms of technology, in terms of refinement. But who will support it? So we are all very environmentally conscious people, but the moment we want to enforce a legislation, enforce a regulation, there is a big cost involved. So the entire gamut, entire idea of environmental legislation will only work if there is sufficient funding, there is sufficient market to have this environmental regulation. But for a criminal justice system to work, we don't want a market. We cannot tell you committed one robbery. So let us see what is the cost of stopping the robbery in the market. We will do a person who will stop robbery. So we will stop robbery after assessing the rate. We won't do that because in criminal justice system there is no such thing as a cost to do away the wrong. There is no one is going to be at loss by not doing a crime. So no one will be at loss by not doing a murder, these are social crime. But the problem in environmental legislation, all these environmental legislations are cost-bearing legislation, cost-bearing regulations. Say, for example, an industry which says these days you are whenever you cross some industries, the solid smoke, the amount of solid smoke coming out of a furnace is reduced to a lot. So you don't see a big dark dust smoke coming out of an industry or a vehicle. Why? Because a lot of research has gone into it, a lot of money has been pumped, and finally people have arrived at a solution to reduce these kind of pollution, say particulate pollution. So, but that costed a lot of people, and the society and the market was mature to bear that cost. Only then the change has happened along with government norms. So the biggest problem which we all see now is any legislation with respect to environment involves cost, and it's not just cost. Many times it is technology. There is something called in international parlance they call it transfer of technology, access to technology. Say newer technologies need a lot of researchers. So developing countries like India, which have very few research institutions, cannot provide solutions to everything. And there are solutions which are available with developed countries. But it is also the reluctance on the part of the developed countries to share those technologies which will reduce pollution. Say, for example, solar power plant, solar panels. Solar panels were existent for last 20-30 years, but only in the last few years we are seeing a lot of solar panels. Why? So for a solar panel, there was a technology. So there was a panel which used to take electricity from the solar light. So it was a technology. But for the technology to be given to all the masses, it costed. It took a lot of time. So the company which created the technology wanted the royalty, wanted the patent. So governments have to lobby. So those technologies slowly they increase their supply. Then they got their sufficient money. Then the technology got into mass market. So the biggest problem in environmental legislation is sharing of technology, sharing of clean technologies. Say electric vehicles. Today there is a big boom of electric vehicles on the road. But this happened in very few last few years. But electric vehicles was available in last decade. But why did the mass did not apply? Mass did not get use of this electric vehicle because they were all priced very higher. The technologies were very higher. So the entire gamut of environmental legislation is, if we look closely, it is always a battle between environment, development, and economics. So unless we see this environmental legislation in the eye of economics, we will not be able to solve this. So apart from this background, there are a few principles based on which all the environmental legislation work. So I think as a budding budding law graduates, you all should be aware of those principles. Because any law will have some principle. So, for example, in a criminal justice system, it's a reformative justice system. So, the idea of criminal justice system is to reform an individual. So, what is an idea behind an environmental law? So, a few minutes back, I was telling about the Stockholm conference, right? During that conference, a big discussion happened, and there are a few principles which came out of those events. One such principle is polluter pays principle. The polluter pays principle. So this is a basic principle which across the world used as a gold standard. So whoever pollutes should pay. So all our environmental legislation, you see any fine levied to an organization everywhere, it is a polluter pays principle. So it is a responsibility of the polluter to pay to clean up the environment and to restore it back. But there is downside to it. As I told, environmental legislations or environmental impacts are not predefined. No one knows what is there in the wild. No one knows what is there. For example, we have cars, we have bikes, we have factories around us. We have never thought what will happen if one day anything happens. So those are extremes. But hey, thinking of those extremes, we do not know what happens at the worst case situation. So we actually do not have a foolproof mechanism to say assess the impact of the pollution which is made. So that is one problem in assessing the damage, assessing the cost created by pollution. And the second problem with the cost polluter pays principle is we don't know. We don't have technologies to clean it. Say for example, we had at least 2 oil spills in Chennai, at least in the last decade or so, and a lot of environmental disasters. But have we found a method to mitigate or to undo the damage done? No, world over, people are still struggling to find a way to solve these issues. For example, when an oil spill happens, basically the entire idea is to contain the oil spill. So there are no proven technology, there are no proven methods or no proven solution to mitigate that disaster. So it is only trial and error, and most of the time it is to stop the spread. So any damaged area is barricaded, avoided, people are stopped from making access to get polluted. So most of the time, all our large pollution items are focused on reducing the exposure. And we have very little clue about how to restore the areas. Although we talk about bioremediation, all those things, those are all in very nascent stage. So this is another issue in polluter pays principle. So apart from polluter pays principle, there is one more principle which governs the environmental governance framework. So that principle is do not touch if it is working well. The principle is like polluter pays principle and precautionary principle. The second principle based on which entire environmental governance across the world works is precautionary principle. As I told, we have very little idea what happens in an extreme situation. So it is always advisable to have a precautionary approach. So that is why most of the industries, whenever environmental licenses are granted, a lot of conditions are granted. Say some amount of green belt has to be around the factory. Say for example, people should be wearing the gloves, people should be wearing masks. All those should be wearing as a precaution. So because it is always good to stop before something happens than to restore. Many times the damages to the environment are very hard to restore. It is not possible at all. Many times the damages are so high that we don't have a way to restore it. Say for example, this oil spill happened on water. Water touches the land touches the mangrove. There are fishes below the water, there are birds above the water. So the moment oil spill happens, all these interconnected items are all polluted. So there's practically no way to catch them all, clean them all, and restore them back to original. Most of the time, these pollutions are toxic. Once they are out, they change the biological system for a long time. So in this situation, it is very difficult to actually undo the damage. So that is why most of the times all environmental legislations focus on something called as precautionary principle. So you would have heard in news very recently, or most of the times, that National Green Tribunal, the Honorable High Courts and the Supreme Court always take a critical stand on projects involving delicate ecosystems, say wetlands or forests or all those things. Because the moment those things are damaged, the moment those things are disturbed, we don't know how long it will take to restore the things to normalcy. So that is why it is always cautious approach everyone takes before touching a natural ecosystem. So I think this is a basic on which entire environmental legislation in India has evolved over the last few decades, and the future is also very critical because every now and then the world meets together, and we have already started getting the impact of an unsafe world in the future. For example, this summer we have seen extreme rains in summer, extreme heat wave rains back to back with no respite. If it rains so heavily. If it is summer, it is so heavy, very intense heat waves. So one of the biggest indicator of climate change, one of the biggest indicator of an unstable environment is extreme events. So whenever you feel the number of extreme events are increasing, we can for sure say that environment has changed, the climate has changed. So we were using the words like 100-year rain, 100-year rain, but starting 2015, we have seen 100-year rains at least 5 times. So basically, it is not a 100-year rain, it is an alternate year rain. So every alternate year, we are seeing a 100-year rain. So last week, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, Bangalore saw its heaviest rainfall in June. Historically heavy rainfall. So last December, the current district, Kanyakumari saw huge floods. So few months back, just a month back, when I was in Chennai, we in Chennai and Chennai Pattathiru saw one of the worst floods the city has faced in recent times, which is impact-wise more than 2015 flood. And it was a regular cyclone. There was nothing strange with that, but the ability of our infrastructures to hold those extremes are getting reduced. In that way, there are two things. Two more words which we use in environmental governance is mitigation and adaptation. So the 4 pillars of Indian environmental legislation is just 4 things. First is polluter pays principle. Second is precautionary principle. Third is mitigation, and fourth is adaptation. What is mitigation? So we all know, like when we had the illustration of electricity generation through coal, we know there is no way to prevent it. Prevention is stopping something without using. So we are all convinced that there is no way to stop an environmental damage. So we all will agree that we cannot switch off electricity, we cannot switch off everything, we cannot turn off air conditioners. In the sense, we cannot turn off permanently. There is no permanent solution to it. It has to run, we will turn off when it is not required, but we cannot stop it now. Now we are every other day, Tamil Nadu's daily electricity usage is hitting new high. So which means more people are consuming more electricity, which means more pollution is happening. So for every unit of electricity, some amount of carbon is added to the atmosphere. So if Tamil Nadu is hitting higher electricity consumption, which means we are also hitting higher carbon emissions at the given point of time. So we all know there is no way to stop an environmental pollution. So what is the way out? We all know there is no way to stop. So the way out is mitigation. What is mitigation? What does the word mitigate mean? Mitigate in plain English means to reduce the impact of. So the buzzword or the future of climate change is environmental mitigation, damage mitigation. So for example, we all know cyclones are going to happen. June, July, August, September, October, 4 months away from another big cyclone in Chennai. Maybe 1 or 2 months away from flood in Chennai. We don't know. If they flood anytime, in a small, big, heavy rainfall, a cloudburst can flood the city. How are we going to mitigate? How are we going to reduce the impact of cyclone? How are we going to reduce the impact of a heat wave? So those strategies are the key. For example, increasing green cover in urban areas, reducing heat exposure to people, increasing people's access to resources, reducing the exposure of poor people to this environmental vagaries. This should be our mitigation, and increasing our infrastructure's capacity. For example, earlier we are having normal kacha houses, thatched houses and temporary sheds. But every time a cyclone comes, everything flies away. So the mitigation aspect is having paka houses, concrete or stable houses. So that is one part of mitigation. So I think most Chennai people have mitigated floods by now parking cars on flyovers. So last Velachery flood entire the city parked the car in Velachery flyover. So Velachery people have mitigated the flood by parking the vehicle on flyovers. That is also part of mitigation, but not a very correct mitigation. But it is also mitigation at individual level. So most apartments in Chennai have stopped creating any underground parking systems. It's all elevated parkings. We are seeing houses, elevated houses. In ground floor, there is no house. Every house is now first floor, ground floor is just empty. So this is one kind of mitigation. Second type is adaptation. What is adaptation? As the word simple English means, adaptation is to adapt to the new normal. So it is no more the old normal, it is new normal. So in the part of adaptation, this week, tomorrow, supposedly tomorrow all the schools were to open. Correct? All schools in Tamil Nadu were to open tomorrow. But I think schools opening have been scheduled delayed by a week. So it is opening on 10 June again. Why? That is part of adaptation. Now we are getting to adapt. Now extreme heat waves are common in the last few years. We have never seen heat wave like this in the past. Now heat waves are common. What is heat wave? So every time we always hear heat wave, what is heat wave? See, by definition, heat wave is nothing but an increase in temperature by 4 to 5 degrees than average temperature. So சம்மர்ல மே மாசம் நமக்கு 38 டிகிரி இருக்கணும்னா அன்னைக்கு 42 டிகிரி போச்சுன்னா அன்னைக்கு அதுக்கு பேர் ஹீட் வேவ். இட் இஸ் அ இன்க்ரீஸ் இன் டெம்பரேச்சர் ஆஃப் தட் டே over average over by 4 to 5 degrees. If it is 4 to 5 degrees above the normal on that day, it will be called heat wave. That will be declared, that will be called as heat wave. So in heat wave, what were the mitigation we started? We stopped going out. We stopped moving out. We stopped exposing people. Construction companies stopped working in the afternoons. Load shedding happens. And one interesting things or one damage about the entire problem of environment is, unlike other systems in criminal justice system, say you catch a murderer and you put him in jail, the murderer will stop. You may have another murderer who may commit a similar crime, but that murderer will not have the strength of the old murderer. So that will be a separate, simple issue. It will not be an added strength. But the problem with this environmental thing is, it is always a positive feedback system. So this is every time, it is like in the movies we have, right? First there is a villain, and one villain is dead. You have second villain coming up, who has the power of first villain along with additional power of second villain. So avarum gali, avuna adutha villain varuvar, that will be more powerful. So it is not starting from zero. The entire problem of environmental damage is, it doesn't start from zero. It starts from where it stopped the last year. Say for example, rain. We had rains in 15. In 2024, rains were more than the 15 rains. So all these environmental damage are, there is no way to stop it. It is only adaptation and mitigation. So I think we are coming to the end of the session. I just wanted to drive a message that the environmental legislation in India is still in very nascent stage. It is not fully mature. The implementation has a lot of loopholes or implementation gaps or lack of implementation, because many times all these environmental legislations are self-regulated. It's not forced by government. So hope things change for the better, and stricter environmental regulations come. We should be put to test for a tougher regulation for our own safety. Unlike other things, environmental legislation is like seat belt in a car. It is put first for your safety, then for others' safety. So environmental legislation is like that. You should be safe. only when you are safe, you will make others also safe. So with this and the 4 basic principles which I told, precautionary principle, polluter pays, adaptation and mitigation, I think you would have got some idea about environmental legislation, how these legislations evolved, what is the principle behind this environmental legislation, what is the principle behind impact assessment, everything. I think maybe at this we can stop the session. I think the time is also over, right? It was around 11:15 to 11:50. I think it's already 11:50. I stop here. Maybe I'll open the session for a minute or two if someone wants to share something, some question, or some open session. I leave the floor open for a minute. If someone wants to raise the hand, can raise the hand, or if someone wants to chat also, can put the message, or you can just switch on your mic and ask. So we'll open the floor for a discussion for a minute. If there is no discussion, we'll close the session. Someone wants to tell something? I think, yeah, Stanley.
Or we are. The forum is open for question and answer session. Participants, if you have any queries, you can ask.
I think they have been given a heavy dose of facts. Or I think the earlier session was also very heavy on technical things. So that is why I had a presentation, but I thought I will not have a presentation. So then,
Ronak Singh, sir, you can address.
Yeah, I think there is no question. I think we can stop now. I think we can close the session. I think any other comments, Stanley, or we can close the session. I think it's already 11:50, right?
Teresa, you can start.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable presentation. It has truly enriched our understanding on the Indian laws in the protection of biodiversity. The insights you shared upon per capita energy consumption and how regulations work on mitigating the pollutions, how environmental regulations are cost bearing in nature, has been incredibly valuable and has given us much to think about it in the protection of biodiversity. Now, for all the participants and attendees, I would like to bring to your attention that there will be a link circulated in the chat box for your feedback and for your certificates. Kindly do fill up and you will receive the certificates to your mail. Certificates will only be given to those who submit the feedback responses. Certificate will only be given to those who submit the feedback responses. Now, I would like to call upon our Assistant Professor, Mr. S. Naveen, Environmental Law and Legal Order, the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, to thank the participants.
Am I
Please,
audible?
sir. Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you. Thank you. First of all, Prashant sir, thank you so much for the very informative session. We all enjoyed it, and I'm sure that the students also really enjoyed it. And there might be doubts. So if there are any doubts, once again, the students can just put in the chat box, or else you can just, I think we have some few minutes for 1 or 2 questions. And if there are any doubts, the session is open to all.
It's a bank.
Okay. So I guess there are no doubts. It was pretty clear, I guess, sir. Okay, so I'll just move on to the vote of thanks. It's almost noon, so I'll not take up too much of the time. So first of all, on behalf of the Department of Environmental Law and Legal Order and of the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for gracing us with your presence and participation in our workshop on this auspicious occasion of the World Environment Day. We are truly honored and humbled by the overwhelming response and active engagement shown by our students, faculty members, esteemed guests throughout the workshop sessions. Our sincerest appreciation goes to our distinguished speakers and experts who have generously shared their knowledge, insights, and experiences on various aspects of land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience and beyond. Your valuable contributions have not only enriched our understanding, but have also inspired us to take concrete action towards building encouraged us. I would also like to thank our registrar madam, Professor GOWRI Ramesh, who is a very capable administrator and who has also been a great inspiration to us all. I would also like to thank the Dean, Professor Balaji sir, who has always extended his hand to help out in conducting all the department activities in a smooth and very clean manner. Next, I would like to thank our head of the department, Professor Harita Devi ma'am, a very exuberant personality, if I must say so, who has always guided the department to great heights over the past few years and will continue to do so. I also extend my thanks to all the department heads, the faculties, the student organizers, and the support staff who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the smooth execution of this event. Your dedication and hard work have been instrumental in making this workshop a resounding success. Last but not least, I would like to express our gratitude to the participants for your active participation and thoughtful contributions and your enthusiasm throughout the workshop sessions. Your passion for environmental conservation and your commitment to making a positive difference are truly commendable. As we reflect on the valuable insights gained from this workshop, let us all take a pledge to translate our learnings into actions and work together towards creating a more sustainable and eco friendly future for the generations to come. Once again, thank you all for your unwavering support and participation, and let us continue to collaborate and strive towards a brighter and greener tomorrow. This is Naveen. Happy World Environmental Day to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I thank all of you for joining with us today. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Just a moment before every one of you go. There is a feedback form which has been put in the chat box. So I kindly urge you all to fill out the feedback form so that you can get your certificates in your mail respectively. And thank you, Prashant sir, once again for your unconditional support. And we wish to collaborate with you in future, many more projects like this. And we wish to invite you to our college and have an even more grander program so that the students can directly come and discuss with you. And I hope you're open to that.
Yeah, definitely. It's always so good to be back to college, collaborating with young minds, so that we are also exposed to the latest thing. Because once we come in, we are locked into the reality. So, but all those fresh thoughts never come after we come to the field. So fresh thoughts
Yes.
come in college. So it is always my pleasure to be collaborating with the prestigious campus. So thank you, sir. Thank you for everyone.
Sir, thank you, Prashant. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take leave. Thank you.
Participants, do fill out the feedback sessions for your certificates, and you'll receive your certificates to your email.